The revelations from the General Hospital have set the stage for another harrowing chapter in Britt Westbourne's already tormented life, one that blends moral peril, scientific coercion, and the unraveling of fragile alliances. After a turbulent chain of events involving Jason Morgan's miraculous rescue during a snowstorm and Britt's own risky confession, the situation appears to be deteriorating rapidly. Now, with Anna Devane's shocking arrest and the re-emergence of Ross Cullum as a ruthless enforcer of WSB orders, the danger Britt faces is no longer abstract. It is immediate, calculated, and deeply personal. Britt's horror at witnessing Anna's capture is not only a visceral emotional reaction, but a stark warning. Anna has long been a figure of strength and integrity within the agency, even if she can be dragged away in chains. What protection does Britt have? Cullum's presence has grown more ominous with every appearance, and there is a grim inevitability to the idea that he might deliver a veiled or explicit ultimatum. Stop stalling and return to the lab on Spoon Island, or suffer consequences as severe as Anna's. That threat would not just be implied through force. It would be a statement about control, punishment, and the expendability of anyone who refuses to comply with WSB's increasingly shadowy objectives. It's not the first time Cullum has expressed his impatience with Britt. Her reluctance to perform the mysterious and morally ambiguous research assigned to her at the new lab has already tested his tolerance. Despite Marco Rio's attempts to paint the facility as a state-of-the-art marvel, Britt remains unconvinced. Her complaints about the lab's subpar conditions, scientifically and ethically, have marked her as a problem in the eyes of her superiors. Whether those criticisms are rooted in legitimate concerns or in her increasing awareness of the organization's manipulation is almost irrelevant. To Cullum and his ilk, resistance equals defiance, and defiance must be neutralized. It is also worth noting that Britt's history with the WSB is deeply complicated by her past medical work, her relationship with Jason, and her desire to shed the shadows of her lineage. This new assignment feels more like entrapment than a career advancement. The fact that Jen Sidwell only reluctantly allowed Britt to leave the compound underscores how little autonomy she truly ever had. Her escape, marked by the chaos aboard the storm-tossed boat and Jason's last-minute intervention, was never about freedom. It was a pause in the pressure, not an end to it. Now that Britt has laid bare the truth to Jason, her options appear grim. Returning to Windermere may no longer be just a choice, but a desperate strategy to avoid immediate retribution. Yet that estate, long haunted by the Cassadine legacy, may prove no safer than the island laboratory. Its walls may shelter her physically, but not from the reach of WSB operatives or the growing specter of Cullum's wrath. The memory of Anna's arrest may follow Britt like a phantom, reminding her of what she could become, a pawn silenced for knowing too much or resisting too long. Cullum's increasing aggression suggests a tightening noose, not only around Britt's neck, but around anyone connected to this convoluted operation. His command style is not one of negotiation, but of assertion and threat. If he does indeed tell Britt to forget the hostage or face the consequences, it would mark a transition from veiled coercion to overt terror. Such statement implies that Britt holds some lingering attachment, perhaps to Jason, or perhaps to some knowledge of the lab's prior experiments that makes her dangerous to the agency. Cullum's threat is not just a demand for obedience, it's a prelude to erasure, the kind of fate that befell countless others who learned too much and resisted too long. Britt's current state of mind is undoubtedly fractured. Her instincts for self-preservation are at war with her guilt, her scientific ethics, and her love for Jason. This internal conflict may be the very thing that keeps her paralyzed at a time when clarity and courage are most required. She has witnessed firsthand the consequences of defiance through Anna's plight, and that image may haunt her into a submission, or push her into a more dangerous rebellion. If she chooses to return to the lab, it could mean sacrificing any remaining leverage she holds. But if she refuses, Cullum might make good on his threat, with catastrophic consequences not just for her, but for those she dares to protect. The narrative forces at play are spiraling into a darker, more catastrophic reality. The boundaries between science, morality, and coercion have been blurred, and Britt Westbourne finds herself in the crosshairs of an organization that values silence and obedience above all else. Her knowledge is both her power and her curse, and Jason may be the only ally left who understands the full extent of the danger closing in. As the storm settles over Port Charles once again, one cannot help but wonder if Britt's return to Windermere marks the final retreat, or the staging ground for the last stand. Because if Colum is indeed escalating his pressure tactics and signaling that no one, not even Anna, is untouchable, then the era of silent complicity may be coming to a violent end. And in the middle of it all, Britt must decide whether to bow to the darkness or shine a light on everything the WSB has tried to keep hidden. The narrative forces at play are spiraling into a darker, more claustrophobic reality. The boundaries between science, morality, and coercion have been blurred, and Britt Westbourne finds herself in the crosshairs of an organization that values silence and obedience above all. Her knowledge is both her power and her curse, and Jason may be the only ally left who understands the full extent of the danger closing in. As the storm settles over Port Charles once again, one cannot help but wonder if Britt's return to Windermere marks a final retreat or the staging ground for a last stand. Because if Colum is indeed escalating his pressure tactics and signaling that no one, not even Anna, is untouchable, then the era of silent complicity may be coming to a violent end. And in the middle of it all, Britt must decide whether to bow to the darkness or shine a light on everything the WSB has tried to keep hidden. Britt Westbourne's situation continues to deteriorate beneath the clinical surface of WSB control. And although she remains outwardly compliant with Colum's demands, the truth is far more complicated. Britt has no choice but to follow the protocols and play her part for now, especially with the memory of Anna Devane's sudden arrest fresh in her mind. Ross Cullum's influence looms large and dangerous, and it's clear that disobedience is a risk few survive. With Jason Morgan quietly working beside her, Britt has begun to orchestrate a subtle plan of escape, one that must remain buried under layers of forced obedience and quiet endurance. Jason's support provides her with a rare anchor in a storm of manipulation and fear, but time is not on their side, and one misstep could expose everything. There's no tactical advantage to delaying the inevitable or provoking Cullum. He has shown time and again that he doesn't tolerate resistance. Each moment Britt spends pretending to comply is a calculated risk, a breathless attempt to gather just enough leverage without tipping her hand. She knows her position in the lab is monitored, her interactions are tracked, and any deviation could be punished without hesitation. Still, Britt walks the line between cooperation and resistance, and with Jason's quiet input, she begins to see a path forward no matter how perilous it may be. But on February 2nd, something shifts. Britt uncovers something she was never meant to know, something that turns quiet resistance into immediate, unfiltered desperation. What she learns is more than troubling. It is grotesque, unsettling, and impossible to ignore. Whether she stumbles upon it through a misplaced file, overhears a passing conversation, or accidentally witnesses something sinister, the result is the same, a surge of dread that leaves her breathless. This revelation becomes the catalyst for what may be her most dangerous choice yet. Until now, Britt's rebellion was hidden beneath compliance. Now the impulse to resist becomes active, immediate, and emotionally volatile. She can no longer pretend that silence is safety. A horrifying possibility rises Britt might discover by sheer accident or partial overhearing, that Anna Devane is not just imprisoned but being psychologically manipulated. Perhaps she comes upon Cullum discussing Anna's condition with Jen Sidwell or Marco Rios, men too experienced in deception to reveal everything but careless enough to drop clues. Even more disturbing is the chance that Pascal, the elusive WSB handler, makes a brief return, and his presence suggests a deeper layer to Anna's captivity. Britt's proximity to these conversations, or even access to partially encrypted messages, could give her a fragmented but chilling view of the truth. Anna is being subjected to bizarre medical conditioning, possibly even pharmacological reprogramming. It's a fate that terrifies Britt, not just because it's happening to someone she respects, but because it's a fate that could one day be hers. The name Cesar Faison may be invoked again, not as a memory but as a weapon. Whether Anna is being manipulated into believing that Faison is alive, or whether some twisted psychological technique is being used to recreate his voice image or effect on her, the WSB's intentions seem deeply unethical if not criminal. For Britt, who has tried so hard to walk away from her father's legacy, this is a sickening irony. The same institution that claimed to be the protector of order now uses his ghost as a tool of psychological warfare. Britt's despair deepens. It isn't only about Anna. It's about the realization that WSB isn't just coercive, it's cruel, strategic, and entirely indifferent to the humanity of its agents and operatives. Seeing the organization blur the lines between science and torture ignites a fire in Britt. Jason may have whispered warnings before, but now Britt feels the truth in her bones. Escape is no longer a hope, it's a necessity. No matter how carefully she's played her role, no matter how well she's pretended to cooperate, she now knows she must get out. The question is whether she can do it in time and whether Jason can protect her once the charade begins to fall apart. The danger intensifies. Every conversation she has with Sidwell, every moment she spends under the observation of Marco, or the lab security systems becomes a test of her composure. She's watched Anna be crushed under the weight of psychological operations. She fears she'll be next. If Cullum senses even the smallest shift in her demeanor, hesitation, disobedience, concern, he could retaliate. And in a world where science has become weaponized and where truth is manipulated at the molecular level, there's no telling what punishment Britt might face. Her knowledge is both her salvation and her liability. The more she knows, the more likely she is to be eliminated. Jason's role in all of this grows more precarious as well. He has already risked everything to pull Britt from the brink once. His involvement must remain invisible for now, hidden beneath false pretenses and subtle codes. The moment the WSB suspects he's working against them, he becomes expendable too. And Britt can't bear to watch someone else be sacrificed, especially not someone who has been her only lifeline. The thought of losing Jason to a bullet, a betrayal, or a trap tightens the noose around her every choice. She must think faster, move more quietly, and risk everything without showing it on her face. Still, Britt's greatest asset might be the very thing that once haunted her, her connection to Faison. If WSB is weaponizing his image against Anna, they may believe Britt to be vulnerable to similar tactics. But she isn't the same girl who lived under her father's shadow. She's been tested by guilt, loss, and betrayal. She knows how to navigate darkness. And if Cullum intends to use her lineage against her, he may be underestimating just how far she's willing to go to stop the cycle from repeating. The coming days will demand a level of courage and calculation that even Britt isn't sure she possesses. With Jason by her side and Anna's suffering burned into her memory, she prepares to defy a system that breaks people down and rebuilds them as ghosts of themselves. The decision to resist is no longer theoretical. It's happening now. And if the WSB sees her as the next threat to be neutralized, Britt Westbourne may just become their most dangerous opponent. That kind of discovery is precisely the kind that would send Britt Westbourne spiraling into panic fear and helpless determination. Learning that Anna Devane is not only alive but being held in secret detention, perhaps subjected to psychological manipulation or physical experimentation, is a sort of shocking revelation that would dismantle Britt's thin wall of self-control. Up to this point, she has walked a razor's edge between cooperation and resistance, enduring the pressure from Ross Cullum while quietly